The jungle world of Unearthed shone like an emerald in the endless black of space. From the windows of their small landing craft, the crew of 3 looked at the vast green surface stretching as far as the eye could see. Rahul pressed his hand against the glass, his eyes filled with excitement. He was a historian who loved forgotten stories and hidden places. For years, he had searched old records for signs of lost civilizations, and now he believed this planet might hold one of the greatest secrets of all. Beside him, Myra, the pilot, sat in her chair with calm hands on the controls. She was steady and sharp, her mind always focused on the present task. She had guided the ship safely through storms of fire and waves of debris, and she was the reason they had landed without trouble. Tomasz, the soldier, leaned back with a grin, holding his helmet in his lap. He trusted his strength more than words and was ready for any danger. The ship settled on a wide plain near the edge of the jungle. The grass glowed with faint light, and tall trees rose like towers, their leaves shimmering silver and green. The air smelled heavy, like wet earth mixed with something sweet. Strange birds with crystal wings flew in circles above them, calling out in voices that sounded almost like songs. Rahul stepped onto the ground and felt his heart race. He carried a small device in his hand, a scanner that picked up traces of energy beneath the soil. The readings were clear. Something powerful and old was buried deep within the jungle. He remembered the stories he had read from old alien traders. They spoke of a tomb hidden under roots of ancient trees, a place said to be cursed. Many had feared to go near it. Rahul, however, felt no fear, only wonder. Myra scanned the horizon with cautious eyes. "I don't like how quiet it feels," she said. "Planets like this hide dangers we don't understand. We should move carefully." Tomasz laughed and tapped his weapon. "If danger comes, it will find me ready. Let's follow Rahl's machine. If there is treasure, it will be worth the trouble." Rahul frowned at the word treasure. "Not treasure," he said softly. "History. A story left behind. We must respect it." The 3 moved toward the jungle, carrying their packs. The trees grew thicker as they entered, vines hanging low and branches twisting together above their heads. Light from the sky barely touched the ground here. Instead, the jungle itself glowed in places, with mushrooms shining faintly blue and insects sparking with golden wings. Hours passed as they walked deeper. Rahul stopped often to study stone fragments half buried in the soil. Strange markings ran across them, lines shaped like rivers and stars. He rubbed away dirt and whispered, "These are not random. They form a path. Someone wanted us to follow." At one point, they reached a clearing where tall stones stood in a perfect circle. Each stone was carved with symbols that glowed faintly when touched. Rahul bent down, running his fingers over the carvings. His heart raced with recognition. These were warnings, written long ago in a language he had studied. "The Emerald Tomb," Rahul said, his voice almost a whisper. "It is real. It lies ahead." Myra looked at the circle with unease. "If it is real, then the curse is real too. Do you believe the stories?" Rahul hesitated. He wanted to dismiss the idea, but the silence of the jungle pressed against him, and the markings felt heavy with meaning. "I believe the builders wanted this place protected," he said carefully. "Maybe they used the word curse to keep intruders away. Or maybe it is something else. We must be ready." Tomasz stepped forward and placed his hand on one of the glowing stones. The light spread across its surface, brighter than before. The ground rumbled slightly, and the jungle around them shivered as if alive. For the first time, Tomasz lost his smile. That felt strange, he muttered, pulling his hand back. The three stood together, watching the forest sway though no wind blew. It was as if the planet itself had noticed them. Rahul felt a chill on his skin but forced himself to stand tall. His dream of discovery was no longer a dream. The tomb was real, and they were closer than anyone had been in centuries. They marked the circle on their maps and prepared their camp nearby. As night fell, the jungle lit itself with natural light. Trees glowed with veins of green, and rivers shone like molten glass. Myra sat quietly by the fire, her eyes always scanning the shadows. Tomasz kept his weapon ready, though he laughed and told stories to hide his unease. Rahul, however, wrote notes by the firelight, copying the symbols he had seen on the stones. Every line he traced filled him with a mix of fear and wonder. He understood now that this was not just a legend told by traders. This was a message from a forgotten race. The Emerald Tomb was waiting, but it did not welcome visitors. Something guarded it. Something that had lasted for centuries, maybe longer. As he closed his notebook, Rahul looked into the dark trees. The air seemed alive, carrying whispers that he could not understand. He knew they had crossed the first step of a long path. Tomorrow, they would move deeper into the jungle. Tomorrow, the true journey would begin. The next morning, the crew rose early. The sun of Neera spread golden light through the mist, and the jungle glowed as if alive. Rahul checked his notes from the night before and pointed the way forward. The circle of stones had marked a path, and he believed it led directly toward the hidden tomb. Myra tightened her boots, ready for the long walk, while Tomasz stretched his arms and shouldered his pack with a grin. They entered the jungle once again, this time deeper and slower. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of flowers that looked harmless but shone with unnatural brightness. Birds with long tails flew past them, making sharp cries that echoed far into the trees. The sound was strange, almost like a warning. Rahul walked at the front, his eyes scanning the carvings on trees and stones. The path was there, but it was never easy. Giant roots twisted above the ground like traps, and vines dropped down from branches as if trying to catch them. The jungle seemed alive, and not in a natural way. It felt as though the land itself wanted to stop them from reaching their goal. Myra noticed it first. She stopped and placed her hand on the trunk of a tall tree. The bark was warm, almost as if the tree had a beating heart. She pulled her hand back quickly and looked at Rahul. This place is not just a jungle. It feels like it is watching us, she said. Rahul nodded slowly. The builders of the tomb may have shaped the land itself. What we feel might be their protection. Tomasz laughed, though the sound carried no joy. So the curse is a forest that fights back. I can handle trees and vines. They cannot scare me. But his words were tested soon. As they pushed further, the jungle began to change. Thick vines blocked the way, stronger than rope. Each time Tomasz cut one, another grew back in minutes, curling across the path. The ground became soft, almost like mud, pulling at their boots as if trying to trap them. Strange insects rose in swarms, their wings shining like glass. They buzzed around the group, landing on skin and armor, leaving marks that burned like fire. Myra swung a branch to push the insects away, while Tomasz shouted curses under his breath and waved his arms. Rahul kept moving forward, ignoring the stings, his eyes fixed on the glowing stones that still appeared from time to time, marking the path. His excitement drove him on, though even he felt the forest pressing against his will. By midday, they reached a river. It flowed wide and green, its surface glowing like liquid emerald. The water was calm, but no sound of fish or life came from it. It was too still, too perfect. Myra crouched near the edge and threw in a small rock. The moment it touched the surface, the water rippled in circles, but instead of fading, the circles grew larger, spreading out until the whole river shook. Something massive moved beneath the surface. "Not safe to cross," Myra said firmly, standing up. Rahul studied the river, his brow furrowed. Across the water, he could see more stone markers. They needed to get across, but the river itself seemed like another trial. "There must be a way," he whispered. The builders left a path, and they would not hide it completely. They followed the river's edge for an hour until Tomasz spotted fallen logs that formed a narrow bridge across the water. The logs were covered in glowing moss, slick and dangerous, but it was the only way. One by one, they crossed, balancing carefully while the water below stirred. Myra kept her eyes forward, refusing to look down. Tomasz laughed again, though this time to hide his fear. Rahul nearly slipped, but Myra grabbed his arm, saving him from falling into the strange water. Once across, they rested for a moment. Rahul wiped sweat from his forehead, his heart still racing. "The curse is not just a story," he said softly. "Every step feels like a test." As they moved on, the jungle grew even stranger. Trees bent toward them as they walked, their branches scraping against armor and packs. Insects returned in larger numbers, and strange animal calls echoed all around. At one point, the ground shook, and they saw shadows of massive creatures moving in the distance. But none of the animals came close, almost as if they too feared the path to the tomb. By the time the sun began to set, they found themselves in another clearing. This one was different. In the center stood a single tall stone, taller than any before. It glowed with green light, brighter than fire. Symbols covered its surface, shifting and changing as if alive. Rahul approached slowly, his heart full of both fear and wonder. He read the markings, his voice trembling. "It says the tomb is near, but the unworthy will never reach it. Only those who endure with strength and heart may pass." Myra placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then we must endure. No matter how hard the jungle tries to stop us." Tomasz stood with his weapon in hand, scanning the shadows. His grin had faded, replaced by hard eyes. He no longer joked about the curse. Now he believed it, even if he did not speak the words. They set camp near the glowing stone. The light kept the insects away, and for the first time, they rested in peace. Still, Rahul lay awake, staring at the shifting symbols. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The Emerald Tomb was no longer just a dream. It was close, and tomorrow, they might see it with their own eyes. But he also felt a warning deep inside. The trials of the jungle had only been the beginning. The real test was yet to come. The third morning on Nero began with a heavy silence. Even the birds with crystal wings were gone, as if they had flown far away. The jungle felt still, almost holding its breath. Rahul woke first and studied the tall glowing stone in the clearing. The shifting symbols had stopped moving during the night, as though the stone itself had gone back to sleep. He wrote the final shapes in his notebook, then looked toward the thick trees. The path was waiting. Myra and Tomasz soon joined him. They packed their gear quickly, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. Without wasting time, they pushed forward, following the faint trail of stone markers half buried in the earth. Rahul noticed that the further they went, the more the jungle grew strange. The trees leaned closer together, their roots forming walls on both sides of the path. It was like walking through a tunnel of living wood. The air grew cooler as they moved. Shafts of sunlight broke through gaps above, striking the ground in long beams. Dust and glowing spores floated in the light, giving the path a dreamlike glow. Rahul whispered, "We are close. I can feel it." Hours passed, and the path led them to a steep rise. Climbing was hard, as roots and rocks made the slope slippery, but they did not stop. Each step filled them with a strange energy, both fear and excitement. At the top, they pushed through the last wall of vines, and then all three froze in silence. Before them lay a canyon wider than anything they had seen on Nira. The ground dropped sharply into a deep valley, and at its heart rose a structure that made their breath catch. The Emerald Tomb. It shimmered in the sunlight like a jewel carved from green crystal. Its walls were smooth and tall, catching the light and sending it back in waves of color. Huge carvings ran along its sides, showing figures taller than any human. These figures wore armor shaped like stars and carried long staffs that looked like both weapons and tools. Their eyes, carved into the stone, seemed to watch across the valley, forever guarding what stood within. Myra stepped forward slowly, her voice almost a whisper. "It does not look like ruins. It looks alive." She was right. The tomb did not appear broken or aged. Instead, it pulsed faintly with light, as if energy still flowed through its walls. Strange green veins ran across the structure, glowing like rivers. At the top of the tomb, a crystal spire reached toward the sky, glowing brighter than the sun itself. Rahul felt his heart pounding. All his life he had searched for this, proof that stories and myths held truth. He opened his notebook with shaking hands and began to sketch quickly, though his eyes never wanted to look away from the sight. "This is not just a tomb," he said in awe. "It is a monument, a message. The builders wanted the galaxy to remember them." Tomasz crouched near the edge of the cliff, scanning the valley below. "If this is a tomb, it is guarded well. Look at the walls. They are not just decoration. Those carvings are meant to frighten intruders." Rahul studied the images again and realized Tomasz was right. The figures carved into the walls were not peaceful. Their eyes burned with judgment, and their raised staffs looked ready to strike. This was no silent resting place. This was a warning. They began their way down into the canyon, careful on the rocky path. The air grew colder as they descended, and a faint hum vibrated through the ground. With each step closer, the hum grew louder, deep like the sound of a massive machine buried under the earth. Myra paused and pressed her hand against the rock wall. "It is not natural. The whole valley is part of the tomb's design." When they reached the bottom, the tomb's size became even more clear. The walls towered above them, smooth and impossible to climb. A massive gate stood in front, carved with more shifting symbols. Unlike the stones in the jungle, these markings glowed bright green, pulsing in rhythm with the hum in the ground. Rahul walked forward slowly, his breath uneven. He touched the carvings, and the light grew stronger under his fingers. The gate shivered as if alive. For a moment, he thought it might open, but instead it stopped, the glow fading to its normal rhythm. Rahul stepped back, his eyes wide. "It knows we are here," he whispered. "The tomb feels us." Tomasz gripped his weapon, uneasy. "I don't like it. Places built by dead races should stay buried." Myra kept her eyes on the gate. She felt no fear in her voice, only respect. "No. This place was waiting for us. The curse may be true, but maybe it is not only about death. Maybe it is a test." They set camp near the base of the tomb, careful to keep their fire small. The night in the canyon was colder than the jungle, and the hum from the tomb never stopped. It was like sleeping beside a giant heart that kept beating. Rahul lay awake, staring at the glowing gate. His mind filled with questions. What was buried here? What did the builders fear so much that they left this curse of protection? As the fire burned low, Rahul thought he saw shapes moving across the walls. Tall figures of light, like the carvings, seemed to walk slowly around the tomb. He blinked, and they were gone, but the image stayed in his mind. The curse was no story. The tomb was alive, and it was watching them. He closed his eyes, but sleep did not come easily. The first glimpse of the tomb had filled him with wonder, but also with fear. Tomorrow, they would try to step inside. Tomorrow, the true test would begin. The next morning began with a pale light filling the canyon. Mist rose from the ground, curling around the towering walls of the emerald tomb. Rahul woke first, his eyes still fixed on the glowing gate. The hum beneath the earth had not stopped all night. It beat like a steady drum, as if the tomb itself breathed in silence. Myra and Tomasz rose soon after. None of them had slept well. Strange dreams haunted them, visions of tall armored figures standing over endless fields of stars. Rahul wrote down what he remembered, but Tomasz said nothing, keeping his thoughts to himself. Myra tightened her gloves and looked at the gate. "Today we try," she said. The three approached the massive entrance. The symbols carved into the surface glowed brighter as they drew near, as if sensing their presence. Rahul touched the markings again, tracing them carefully. His voice shook as he translated. "It says, 'The last guard remains. Only the worthy may pass.'" Tomasz gave a short laugh, though it held no joy. "We already proved we are stubborn enough to cross the jungle. What more do they want?" But before Rahul could answer, the ground shivered under their feet. The hum deepened, turning into a rumble that echoed through the valley walls. The great gate began to shift. The carvings moved like flowing rivers of light, rearranging themselves into new shapes. With a deep groan, the stone split apart, and the entrance opened. A blast of cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of old stone and metal. The three exchanged looks, then stepped inside. The interior was vast, a long corridor that stretched into darkness. The walls shimmered faintly with green veins of energy, glowing like blood inside a living body. As they walked, their footsteps echoed, but there was another sound, two low whispers, almost like voices speaking in a forgotten tongue. Rahul listened closely. Though he could not understand the words, he felt the meaning. Warning. Test judgment. The corridor opened into a great hall. At its center stood tall figures, larger than any human, their bodies made of crystal and light. They were the guardians, the curse itself given form. Each one held a long staff glowing with emerald fire. Their eyes blazed as they looked at the intruders. Tomasz raised his weapon instantly, fear flashing in his eyes. "I knew it. We should never have come here." Myra placed her hand on his arm firmly. "Wait. Look at them. They are not attacking." Indeed, the guardians did not move. They stood in silence, watching. Rahul stepped forward, heart pounding. He studied the carvings on the walls of the hall. They showed the same figures in battle, fighting against shadowy creatures that covered the stars. He realized the guardians were protectors, not monsters. "This is the curse," Rahul said softly. "Not a spell. Not a myth. They are the defense left behind by the builders. They decide who may enter." The guardians took a single step forward. The ground shook under their heavy forms. Their staffs glowed brighter, and a deep voice filled the hall, though none of them could see lips move. The words rang in Ra'ul's mind, not in his ears. "Why do you come?" Ra'ul swallowed hard. His voice trembled as he answered, "We seek knowledge. We seek to honor what was lost." The light in the Guardian's eyes flared. Another voice filled the hall, stronger this time. "Many came before you. They came for power. They came for wealth. All were turned away. All were judged unworthy. Will you stand before judgment?" Myra stepped beside Ra'ul, her voice calm but strong. "We will. We did not cross the trials for greed. We only want to learn." For a long moment, the Guardians were silent. Then the hall shook again. The staffs struck the ground as one, and the sound rang like thunder. The green light from their bodies spread across the walls, filling the chamber with blinding glow. Suddenly, the carvings on the walls came alive. The scenes of battle moved like memory. They saw alien warriors fighting against a tide of darkness, their glowing weapons striking down shadow beasts. They saw cities of crystal burning, starships falling from the sky, and finally the last survivors building the tomb as their final stand. Ra'ul watched with tears in his eyes. "They put their history here," he whispered. "This is not just a tomb. It is a warning to whoever comes after." The vision faded, and the hall grew silent again. The Guardians lowered their staffs but did not step aside. Their eyes still burned with green fire. One of them lifted a hand, pointing toward the far end of the hall where another gate stood. The meaning was clear. "You may go further, but the test is not done." Ra'ul nodded slowly. He felt both awe and fear, but also determination. Humanity had come this far, and now they stood at the edge of truth. He turned to Myra and Tamash. "The curse has awakened. But it is not meant to destroy the worthy. It is here to test us. We must prove we are more than seekers of power." Tamash lowered his weapon at last, though unease still filled his eyes. "Then we move forward. But I will not trust those glowing giants." Myra gave a small smile, though her eyes remained fixed on the Guardians. "Trust is not needed. Respect is." Together, they walked toward the second gate. Behind them, the Guardians watched in silence, their eyes following every step. The hum of the tomb grew louder, almost like a heartbeat rising. The curse was awake now, and it would not let them pass without judgment. As they stood before the new gate, Ra'ul placed his hand on the glowing symbols. He felt heat under his skin, and a voice whispered again in his mind. "One step closer. One step into the heart." He pulled his hand back, his breath shaking. The true trial was waiting inside. The curse was not a story of death. It was alive, and it had chosen them. The corridor beyond the second gate stretched into darkness, wider and taller than any hall they had seen so far. The walls pulsed faintly with green light, flowing like liquid veins. Ra'ul, Myra, and Tamash stepped carefully, their footsteps echoing through the vast space. The hum beneath the tomb grew stronger, vibrating through their bones, making their hearts beat faster. Ra'ul could not hide his excitement. "This is it," he whispered. "The builders wanted this hall to protect something important. We are finally close to the heart of the tomb." Myra glanced at him with a cautious expression. "Close or not, we must stay alert. The Guardians may be behind us, watching every step." Tamash grunted but did not speak. His eyes scanned the shadows, alert for any movement. The tomb's defenses were clear, but so far, nothing attacked them. Still, the feeling of being watched never left them. The corridor ended at a massive chamber, circular and high, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness. In the center floated a collection of emerald shards, each glowing softly in the air as if suspended by invisible threads. The shards rotated slowly, catching light from the walls, reflecting tiny rainbows across the floor. Rahul gasped, his eyes wide. The builders preserved something here, he said. These shards, they are not just crystal. They hold energy, knowledge, memories. Tomash stepped closer, examining the shards. It looks dangerous. How do we know it won't explode or strike us? Myra raised her hand. We approach carefully. Watch the flow. Do not touch until we understand. Rahul moved closer, his hand reaching out toward the floating crystals. As he did, the largest shard, at the center of the collection, began to glow brighter. A wave of warmth spread from it, filling the chamber. The other shards pulsed in response, rotating faster, their light forming a pattern on the floor like a glowing map. The guardians had not followed them into the chamber, but Rahul felt their presence in another way, a silent pressure, judging their intentions. He spoke aloud, though his voice trembled. We come with respect. We seek to learn, not to take. We wish to honor what the builders created. The shards responded to his words. A beam of light shot from the central shard, connecting to Rahul and then spreading to Myra and Tomash. Images filled their minds, scenes of the builders' past. They saw a civilization advanced beyond imagination, cities of crystal and light floating in space, starships faster than thought, and armies defending themselves against shadowy invaders. They saw the builders' final decision, to preserve their knowledge in this tomb and leave guardians behind to protect it forever. Rahul fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the flood of memories. It is, everything they were, everything they learned, he whispered. The tomb is not just a resting place. It is a library of their lives, their victories, and their warnings. Myra stood still, her eyes closed as the images passed through her mind. She felt a deep connection with the builders. They trusted us enough to show this, she said softly. If they wanted to punish us, none of this would appear. Tomash, usually the most skeptical, dropped to one knee, his jaw tight. I feel, their purpose. They left a gift, but only for those who can understand. We are being tested, not trapped. The shards slowed their rotation, and the central crystal began to rise higher into the air. The room shimmered with light as if acknowledging their presence. Rahul realized that this was the heart of the tomb, the core of everything the builders had left behind. It held not only knowledge but also a message for the future. The curse was never meant to destroy, Rahul said, his voice shaking with awe. It is here to judge us. To see if we are worthy of learning and carrying this wisdom forward. Myra nodded. Then we honor it? Not with fear, but with respect. That is the only way to pass. Tomash looked at the floating shards and finally allowed himself to relax slightly. I understand now. Strength alone is not enough. We must show patience, courage, and truth. Suddenly, the central shard pulsed brighter, sending beams of light toward the walls. The walls opened like screens, displaying maps of old stars, forgotten sciences, and paths to distant worlds. Rahul reached out again, feeling the knowledge filling his mind. He realized humanity had been given a chance to learn secrets older than themselves. The chamber vibrated softly, and the guardians appeared at the entrances, standing silently. Their glowing eyes did not threaten. Instead, they observed approval. The test had not ended, but they acknowledged that the humans were learning in the way the builders had intended. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz understood then that the tomb was more than a place of history. It was a living testament, alive with energy, knowledge, and the lessons of a civilization that had survived as much through wisdom as through strength. They spent hours in the chamber, absorbing what they could. Every moment felt sacred. Every image, every sound, every pulse of light reminded them that the builders had created not just a tomb, but a legacy meant to guide others. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Rahul turned back and whispered, "The heart of the tomb has tested us. We have survived, not because of luck, but because we showed respect and courage. The journey is not over, but we are ready for what comes next." The guardians remained silent as the humans left, the light of the shards slowly fading behind them. The heart of the tomb had revealed itself, and with it, a promise: knowledge would always reward the worthy, and the curse would only guard, never destroy, those who proved themselves. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz left the chamber with the emerald shards glowing faintly behind them. The knowledge they had absorbed still hummed in their minds, images of distant stars, lost civilizations, and forgotten technologies filling their thoughts. Yet as they moved deeper into the tomb, the guardians reappeared, standing silent and tall at every corridor entrance. Their eyes glowed brighter than before, and the hum beneath the floor seemed to beat in rhythm with their presence. The humans realized this was more than a test of endurance or courage. The guardians were judging their hearts, their intentions, and their choices. Every step closer to the center of the tomb felt heavier, as if the very air weighed on them with expectation. Rahul led the group, feeling both fear and awe. He glanced at the guardians and spoke softly. "We must show them that we come for knowledge, not for greed. They will know if our hearts are true." Myra nodded, her expression steady. "We have learned respect, patience, and courage. That is our proof." Tomasz, usually focused on strength and action, clenched his fists. "If they want us to prove ourselves, then we will. Not by fighting, but by standing together." As they approached a massive chamber at the heart of the tomb, the floor beneath them began to glow with a faint green light. The walls pulsed, projecting images from the shards they had left behind. Ancient star maps, alien languages, and scenes of battles against shadowy invaders filled the room. It was as if the tomb itself was speaking, testing their understanding of what they had learned. One of the guardians stepped forward, larger than the others. Its eyes blazed green, and the staff it held struck the ground once, sending a vibration through the hall. A voice spoke in their minds, deep and resonant. "Many have come before you. Many sought power. All failed. What do you seek?" Rahul took a deep breath. "We seek knowledge. Not for power. Not for wealth. We want to honor what was lost, to learn so that we may carry it forward responsibly." Myra added, "We come with respect for what your civilization built. We do not wish to take it, only to understand it and protect it." Tomasz hesitated, then spoke in a firm voice. "We have survived the trials of the jungle, the guardians, and the tomb itself. We have faced fear and uncertainty. Our hearts are true." For a long moment, the hall was silent. The guardian's eyes swept over the three humans, examining them as though reading their thoughts. Then, the central guardian raised its hand and pointed toward the final chamber beyond the hall. "You may enter," the voice said. "But your choice will define your path. Only those who carry truth and honor may bear the gift of knowledge." Rahul felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He understood the meaning. This was no longer just a trial of courage or strength. This was a test of morality. What they did next would show whether humanity could be trusted with the builder's legacy. They entered the final chamber carefully. Inside, a massive crystal sphere floated in the center, pulsing with emerald light. The air around it shimmered, and the hum of the tomb grew louder, almost deafening. The sphere contained the full memory of the builders' civilization, all their knowledge, and all the warnings they had left behind. The guardians remained at the entrances, their eyes glowing brighter than ever. They did not move, but their presence felt heavy and demanding. Rahul approached the sphere and reached out with reverence. As he did, visions filled his mind, visions of civilizations destroyed by greed and cruelty, star systems lost to careless hands, and lessons learned too late. He withdrew his hand and looked at Myra and Tomasz. This knowledge is powerful. If used wrongly, it could destroy worlds. We must choose carefully what to take and how to use it. Myra stepped forward, her voice calm. Then we take only what we need. We must remember respect and humility. The builders trusted only those worthy of their gift. Tomasz nodded, his usual bravado replaced with seriousness. Strength alone will not protect us. Wisdom and honor will. That is our choice. Rahul touched the sphere again, this time with deliberate care. Light from the crystal flowed into their minds, sharing fragments of knowledge, old star maps, scientific discoveries, and warnings about dangers in the galaxy. They absorbed it slowly, ensuring that they respected the gift rather than taking it all at once. The guardians observed silently, their glowing eyes showing satisfaction. The humans had proven themselves. They had chosen restraint over greed, respect over recklessness, and truth over false ambition. The curse of the tomb was not punishment but protection. It protected the knowledge and judged those who approached it. When the final visions faded, Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz stood together, hearts steady and minds filled with understanding. The tomb's hum softened, and the guardians slowly lowered their staffs. Their eyes remained glowing, but their judgment had passed. Rahul whispered, "We made the right choice. We are worthy, not because of strength, but because we showed truth, courage, and respect." Myra smiled faintly. "The tomb will trust us now, but we must never forget the responsibility we carry." Tomasz sheathed his weapon and nodded. "I understand. We are not conquerors here. We are protectors, learners, and witnesses." The guardians slowly receded to their posts, standing silently at the entrances. The humans had completed the ultimate test. The curse had awakened, judged, and approved them. The Emerald Tomb had shared its gift, not for glory, but for those who proved themselves through wisdom and honor. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz left the final chamber with a sense of awe and purpose. They understood that humanity had been trusted with a rare treasure, the knowledge of a civilization that had survived through courage, wisdom, and respect. The true reward was not the power of the tomb, but the affirmation that humans could rise to meet the highest expectations of a long-lost race. As they walked back toward the surface, the tomb seemed to hum softly in farewell. The guardians remained, but they no longer watched with suspicion. The humans had passed the trial. They had made their choice, and it had proven the worth of humanity. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz slowly ascended the final corridor, leaving behind the chamber that held the builder's knowledge. The emerald light from the shards had faded, leaving only the faint glow of the walls. The hum of the tomb softened to a gentle vibration beneath their feet. Every step felt lighter now, but their hearts carried the weight of what they had learned. Outside, the jungle of Nira spread like a living sea of green. The valley was quiet, as if the planet itself recognized the humans' passage. Rahul looked at the towering trees and sparkling rivers and realized that their journey had changed him. He no longer sought only discovery. He now understood responsibility. Knowledge could guide humanity or destroy it. The tomb had chosen him and his companions to carry that burden wisely. Myra scanned the horizon. "The Guardians did not follow us this far," she said. "They trust us now. Their purpose is complete." Tomasz nodded, though he still carried his weapon. "Trust is earned. We must remember that the tomb gave us more than knowledge. It gave us a chance to prove who we are." Rahul turned back toward the tomb one last time. The massive gate was now calm, the symbols still glowing faintly. He felt a deep connection to the builders. They had lived, fought, and preserved their civilization not for power, but for meaning. Their gift was not treasure or weaponry, it was understanding. A chance to see the universe through the eyes of a wiser, older race. As they descended into the valley, a faint beam of light shot from the tomb into the sky, scattering emerald rays across the jungle. The light seemed to reach outward, touching distant stars, connecting worlds long forgotten. Rahul realized that this was the tomb's blessing, a signal to those who were worthy. The builder's knowledge was now in human hands, ready to be shared with respect and care. Myra spoke quietly. "Do you feel it? The energy of the tomb, it is alive in the air." Rahul nodded. "Yes. It is like the builders left part of themselves here, to guide anyone who learns how to honor them. They trusted us to carry it forward." Tomasz laughed softly, a sound of relief. "I thought we were just surviving a cursed tomb. Now I see we were chosen for something far bigger." The team set up a small camp at the edge of the jungle, taking time to reflect. Each of them carried pieces of knowledge in their minds, not as mere facts, but as living memories. Maps of star systems, strategies for survival, and ideas for new technology filled their thoughts. Yet the most important lesson was clear: the tomb's gift was a responsibility, not a reward. Rahul opened his notebook and began writing. He recorded everything they had seen and felt, not to claim ownership, but to remember the builder's purpose. Myra organized the sketches and readings from the shards, making sure their information would remain accurate. Tomasz checked the surrounding area, protective but thoughtful, understanding that strength alone was not enough. Together, they had become guardians in their own way, chosen by a civilization that had long since vanished. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the emerald rivers. The jungle shimmered in shades of green and gold, alive with soft sounds of unseen creatures. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz watched silently, feeling a connection not only to Nira but to the builders who had created the tomb. Their presence, their lives, and their legacy had survived in this place, and now it would continue through humanity. Rahul spoke softly. "We must protect this knowledge. Not for power, not for glory, but so that it may guide others. That is the true gift of the tomb." Myra nodded. "And we must share it wisely. Only what is needed, only what is understood. The builders left us a test, and we passed it by showing respect, courage, and truth." Tomasz lowered his weapon and smiled genuinely for the first time in days. "Then we carry this gift together. Humanity can rise to the challenge. We are stronger than just our strength, we have learned wisdom and honor." As night fell, the tomb behind them glowed softly, like a sleeping heart. The guardians remained at their posts, silent but vigilant. Their watch would never end, but they no longer judged. Humanity had proved itself worthy. Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz knew the journey was not over. The knowledge they carried could change civilizations, guide explorers, and prevent mistakes that had destroyed others. Yet they also knew the tomb would always be a reminder: the builders had survived not because of power, but because of patience, wisdom, and respect. Humanity had been given a chance to follow the same path. Rahul looked up at the stars above Nira. He felt hope, responsibility, and pride. "We will honor them," he said. "The curse was never meant to harm us. It was meant to protect what matters most. And now, we carry it forward." Myra and Tomasz stood beside him, silent, feeling the truth in his words. They had faced the jungle, the guardians, and the heart of the tomb. They had been tested and chosen. Together, they would carry the builder's legacy into the stars, not for conquest, but for wisdom and understanding. The emerald light of the tomb faded as the night grew darker, leaving the jungle peaceful once again. The humans turned toward their ship, ready to leave Nira, but their hearts remained within the tomb. The curse had protected its treasure, and humanity had been trusted with it. From this day forward, Rahul, Myra, and Tomasz were no longer just explorers, they were the keepers of a gift that would guide their civilization among the stars. And so, the Emerald Tomb remained, shining quietly under the green canopy, waiting for those who were worthy, and reminding all who approached that courage, truth, and honor were the keys to every great journey.